Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 21 of UAB Green and Told. Original air date, Monday, June 8th, 2020. UAB Green and Told gives us the opportunity to share stories from members of the UAB family. I'm Greg Berry, Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. On this episode, Coach Brian Shoop joins us. He spent nearly a decade and a half in the dugout for UAB's baseball team. Recently, he retired, stepping away after a tremendous 40-year coaching career. But before UAB, there were 3 stops. And as he'll explain, his path to our campus wasn't traditional.
Grown men weeping and hugging each other. And we had just won the conference. And within a week, we don't even have a program. It was crazy.
And as Shoop will share, his teams came up just short of doing great things as they strive to make that next step.
You could make a case that we were 1 game away from maybe going to 3 regionals in 4 years.
Plus, he'll delve into his relationship with perhaps the greatest volunteer coach of all time, the legendary Ron Polk, a man Shoop saw 2 very different sides of.
He'd get cackling and giddy and laughing with the boys, and I'd never seen that.
Brian Shoop was an athlete growing up. As a kid in Ohio, he played everything: baseball, football, basketball, and even hockey. An avid sports fan, he also hawked programs at Ohio State football games during the Woody Hayes era. Shoop was destined to coach. It's all he ever wanted to do. But had his original plan stayed true, he never would have smelled the fresh-cut grass of ball fields across the country. No, he had different plans.
I knew I always wanted to be a coach. I thought I wanted to be a high school basketball coach, but then all I played in college was baseball, and I kind of went a different direction at that point. So, good player, certainly not a great player.
You mentioned you got the coaching bug early. What spurred that? What led to that desire to want to work with other athletes?
I don't know. I just loved sports, I think, and I don't know. It's just kind of ingrained in our family, and I from the earliest age I wanted to be involved in athletics, and so I'm sure grateful that I never had to work for a living. I got to stay in sports.
What did you major in at Malone?
Yeah, that is an interesting answer. So I did have some foresight, and I wanted to get a master's degree in athletic administration. And there were only 2 programs in the country at the time, Ohio University and the University of Massachusetts. When I graduated 4 years later, they were everywhere, but there were only 2 at the time. So the summer after I graduated from Whetstone High School, I scheduled an appointment at Ohio University. I went down and met with the chair of the program and asked it was a highly competitive program. And I said, I want to get into this program 4 years from now. What would make me attractive to you, and what would help me to get there? And so he helped me design. I'm the only major of its kind at Malone. It was just a hodgepodge of classes. I took business and economics. I took physical education. I took a lot of speech classes, psychology classes, coaching classes. So it really was almost probably good for nothing other than to go on and get a master's degree. But that's what I wanted to do. When we graduated, programs all over the country, and the closest one was at Kent State. And so that's why I did my master's at Kent State. It was in athletic administration. So I stayed that course, but I just commuted up to Kent, about 45 minutes north, was working in admissions at Malone, and coaching, helping Coach Starcher at Malone. And then I did get the master's degree in that field. So kind of a hodgepodge.
Yeah, no kidding. So right after you got your master's, is that when you moved on from Malone and hooked up at Mississippi State with Coach Polk?
Yeah, we actually knew a year before we were going to go to Mississippi State. So there were a lot of great things that happened to us at Malone College. But the 2 greatest for me was I met my wife, and then I played for Bob Starcher. He coached on an international team with Coach Polk. And so there was that connection. And I mean, so many people wanted to go to Mississippi State. That was back in the era of graduate assistants. That's how everybody got into the business back then. Coach Polk had spoken in Columbus, Ohio, and Coach Starcher drove me down to Columbus. I interviewed with Coach Polk at a Holiday Inn in Columbus, Ohio, and he offered me an opportunity. Why, I have no idea. There were thousands more deserving candidates, but probably because he liked Coach Starcher. So we actually knew for a year that we were going to be going down there. But I finished my master's degree.
Coach Polk, highly, highly revered as a college baseball coach. Fantastic career. What was it like studying basically under him on the field at Mississippi State?
Yeah, I would say I had the blessing of studying under two of the great baseball minds ever. Coach Polk being one, and then Pat McMahon was the head assistant at Mississippi State my 7 years that I was there. And so, I watched and observed Coach Polk and the way that he went about his business and the way that he ran his program and the way that he interacted with players. But then Pat McMahon, because a head coach is so busy with everything, right, that falls on a head coach's plate, that it was really Pat that took time to sit down and teach the intricacies of the game and oh my word, did I learn baseball from Pat McMahon as well. So I was in literally a gold mine of baseball expertise, and it's the most incredible coaching clinic you could be in.
As an assistant coach, I'm sure you had your eyes set on becoming a head coach. What did you take from those two coaches at Mississippi State that you could apply at the next stops in your career?
I really wasn't looking to be a head coach. I was only a full-time assistant for 3.5 years when the Birmingham Southern gig came open. I wasn't looking at all. This is a crazy story. I just think it's a testament to God. I've never applied for a job in my life.
Really?
I never had a resume that I was prepared to give to anyone, and I never applied for a job in my life. So I was not looking to be a head coach, and maybe eventually I would have. But, we were still kind of settling into Starkville and whatnot. But what did I learn? Coach Polk is the master of organization. Coach Polk is the master of detail. Coach Polk is the master of calm and relationships with players. And then from Pat McMahon, all of the base running stuff that we did, Pat McMahon. All of the pitching philosophy stuff that we've done, Coach McMahon. And so, it was kind of a combination of really, I became who I was in those 7 years.
You had mentioned that you never applied for anything, but yet here you are in Birmingham. How did the whole Birmingham Southern thing come about? If there was no resume, there was no search, they obviously approached you.
Yeah, so Rob Moxley was the athletic director at the time, and Neil Bertie was the president, who I learned so much from, too. And they called and interviewed 4 candidates. It was the head assistant at Alabama, the head assistant at Auburn, the head assistant at LSU, and I'm the second assistant at Mississippi State. And again, on paper, no shot did I have at that job. I didn't expect in any way to get the job. And again, I'm not sure why Dr. Moxley offered it to me. So it kind of came out of nowhere. I thought, the interview will be a good experience, but I've got no shot at this job. And lo and behold, obviously I did.
As a rookie head coach at Southern, what were your goals? What did you want to do with that program?
In youth pony league, I played on a team that never lost a game and was the Ohio State champions. The 3 years that I was at Whetstone High School, we were number 1 in the state or the city champion, with all kinds of guys going on in playing. At Malone, that was the top NAIA program in Ohio, and Coach Starcher had won for 12 consecutive district championships, and I was on the last 4 of those. And so all I'd ever experienced was, was winning. So I guess I expected that we would do that. But playing for Coach Starcher at Malone, while he valued highly winning, and we did win, that wasn't what he ever put forth as the primary goal. It was always the development of men. It was always character. It was always faith development. And I would say that had a huge impact on me as well. So, while I wanted to have a culture of excellence and winning, I think my memory serves that my very first ever meeting with a team, we're going to work our guts out to win, but we will never sacrifice success on the field for compromise off the field. We didn't talk a lot about winning. The year we won the national championship, that wasn't a talked about goal a lot. In fact, I would always tell our teams, if we ever win a championship, it's too small of a goal. And I believe that to this day, because I have 9 rings and they sit in a box. They really have zero impact on the quality of life. A couple of weeks ago, right after retirement, I had hundreds of calls. I'm still trying to catch up. I don't think one person talked about a win or a game, and they had won a lot. It was really important to me that it was going to be a rounded program, and we worked our guts out to win. And one of the primary reasons that led me to that this was the right time to retire is that for the last 5 years we haven't been winning, and that is a really important component of it. But I wanted it to be a much more rounded program that was going to address every element of the development of a young man.
Winning doesn't come easy, that's for sure. But at Birmingham Southern, man, it seemed like it did.
We were NAI for the first 11 years that I was there. We had some of the better NAI facilities anywhere. We had admissions and financial aid that really valued us bringing in student athletes. It was necessary for the financial health of the college, and they really valued us because we were bringing in great students. NAI was a wide range. The elite of the NAI was really, really good. The gap in NAI, there were a lot of programs that were not very good, that had not made much of a commitment. And so, there was a lot of our schedule that we were just better than, and we were going to win. Now, to get to the elite level, that took some time. To get to a competitive level, we got there pretty quick. We got there by year 2. And then we got it, once we started going to the World Series, that really helps recruiting. Success breeds success. And then there was excitement about going to the Division I level. And, we had success there as well. So my goodness, was it rolling with talent when that program was shut down.
Talk a little bit about that, everything that kind of went into that shutting down, and then the transition to be a Blazer.
If you can remember, when our football program at UAB was dropped, and the deep emotions and the tears and the weeping. So I lived through that at Birmingham Southern, grown men weeping and hugging each other. And we had just won the conference, and within a week, we don't even have a program. It was crazy. My wife and I were 100% that we would retire at Birmingham Southern. We had turned down a few jobs over the years, and jobs that people would think that you would take and that you would aspire to get to. But it was such a good fit. We lived on campus. I literally worked 2 minutes from my home. Our kids were going to go to Birmingham Southern for free. We had plans to build a stadium with funding from Mr. Striplin. We had plans to add on to our home. we were just going to stay. And then, a new president comes in, and like any CEO has the right to do what he thinks is best. And he thought it was best to transition to a Division III athletic program. And they dropped baseball and basketball for a year. And 7 days after BSC dropped, Lee Moon called, said, we have an opening, we'd like you to come. I went and met with Lee Moon, and it was just really emotional. I wasn't in a position to make a decision yet like that. And so I said no. And then Watson Brown called. Watson was our football coach at the time, and I had a one-on-one meeting with Watson. So I guess nobody but me and Watson know that this is what happened. But he thought that was going to be his last year coaching football, but he was anticipating becoming the director of athletics, and encouraged a pretty bold vision of a new stadium at Young in a very short period of time. And we decided to walk across town and join the Blazers.
When you got to UAB, what was the program like?
UAB, is a very young school, right? We're 50 years old and entering our 51st year. And the baseball program was even younger than that. If you think about where all of the facilities were in athletics, Bartow Arena was very good. Other than that, we were behind in everything, right? Football, way behind. Track, golf, tennis, softball was playing at George Ward Park. And, it's one of the great things that Mark has done in his 5 years here is to improve the facilities and get us on a par, with things. We'd had some really good coaches, obviously. We'd had Harry Walker, started the program, an incredible legend. Pete Rancott had been his assistant and took over the head job with Jim Case, was an assistant, who's now the head coach at Jacksonville State, who has a stadium named after him and is a very dear friend of mine. And then Larry Giangrosso, who had an incredible high school career. So we had a great heritage of leadership. We'd had some really good players, but UAB was behind in some areas, and it was behind in funding. It was behind in facilities. It was, we happened to play in Conference USA, which during Gino's time and during the first 2/3 of my time, believe it or not, was often the 4th, 5th, or 6th best baseball league rated in the country, with schools that had made major commitments to baseball. And so, man, every game was going to be a war.
You found ways to win, and you had success during your time at UAB. Talk about the high moments, 2012, 2014, 2 seasons that probably stand out to most UAB baseball fans.
We got really close, actually. I would say it was 2009 through 2015. I would say it was a 7-year run. We were over 500 6 of the 7 years. I think we beat Alabama 5 years in a row in that run. We had a lot of SEC wins. Rice had never lost a conference series ever in Conference USA in baseball until we beat them at Young Memorial. In 2009, we beat them 2 out of 3. And then 2012, and oh my goodness, if Dylan Napoleon hadn't gotten hurt that year, that was our number 1 pitcher who beat Clemson on opening day at Clemson. We were really good. So, we win it's the only Conference USA championship, ever in baseball at UAB. And then in 2014, it's the year we moved to regions, which really helped. We won 35 games that year. And I'll go to my grave. That was a terrible injustice too. And you hate to overuse that word, because there are real injustices in our society, and we're living it right in the middle of that right now, from an athletic standpoint, which isn't as important as a human standpoint. that was an injustice that team was not rewarded with a regional bid that year. And one of the teams they took over us in common competition, when the teams that we had played, we finished 4 games better than they did, and we beat them 2 out of 3 on their field. We had the only pitcher in America, Chase Mallard, who had 14 quality starts. People did not want to face him. He gave us a shot, no matter who we played. If we'd have gone to Florida State or wherever, where they send you, Ole Miss, or we had a shot. And then in 2015, we played. It was Mark Ingram's first day on the job. We played on Championship Sunday. So we'd beaten Southern Miss on their field on opening day. We'd beaten Florida Atlantic twice to get to the championship game. 2 of the better programs in Conference USA, and we lost on Championship Sunday. So, you could make a case that we were 1 game away from maybe going to 3 regionals in 4 years. What does that do to your program if that happens?
Yeah.
That really helps. Like at Birmingham Southern, we started going to the World Series, and then we win it. You don't go and win it. You get there, and then you get there, and then you get a little further, and then you get there and you win. And so that run on the field was we got really, really close. And I know that UAB can get there again. And I'm hoping with all that's within me that'll happen this year under Perry and Adam.
As a coach at UAB, you landed perhaps the greatest volunteer assistant of all time in Coach Polk. Kind of came full circle. You worked with him at Mississippi State. He came to work with you at UAB. What did that mean to you as a coach to have a mentor like that support you and come work with you?
I'll say this first. He didn't come work for me. He did whatever he wanted, and I'm like, yeah, Coach. I still called him Coach, and yes, sir. So it was great for our kids. And he's very different now than when he was a head coach. When he was a head coach, it was all business. He never kidded with the players. Let's say that. Here, he was like their grandfather, just cutting up, arm around them, always a hand on their shoulder. So it was a very different side of Coach Polk, which was a joy for me to see. He'd get cackling and giddy and laughing with the boys, and I'd never seen that in my 7 years. I really did not have a personal conversation with Coach Polk in 7 years that I was at Mississippi State. We talked recruiting, practice, or scouting reports, which is what I was in charge of at Mississippi State. And here, he just loved the relationships with the players. It was a joy to start and end, basically, my career with one of the true legends of the game and one of the truly great people in our game.
At what point did you decide this was going to be the year you retire after 40 years of coaching?
You kind of had a practice retirement when we got sent home on March the 13th, So you go from working constantly where you can't think about the future. You're thinking about the next opponent and the next recruiting call. So you go from that environment to you're bound at home and you're still working, but you're not working half of what you were working before. And so there's a lot of time to process at that point. So I would say it was over the quarantine. There was downtime for Brenda and I to talk and pray and think and work through what was this the right time.
What's next for Coach Shoop?
Yeah, we honestly don't know, and that really wasn't a factor in this decision. Our oldest and his wife, he's an assistant pastor at our church, and their 2 children are living with us now because they're in between homes. They sold, they have to close and do some renovations. So we got thrown into literally full-time grandparenting because they're living with us. So we're going to do family things immediately. One of the things we did a poor job of in our personal lives was visiting with our parents because you didn't have any time off. And so you'd go immediately from the season literally into recruiting and camps. So as soon as the retirement community opens up in Pensacola, where my mom and dad are, they're still on lockdown. I want to go and spend time with them. How many more years do they have? I don't know. We are going to go to Ohio in June, and we haven't been in 2 years, which is embarrassing to say, but there wasn't long enough windows in the coaching calendar to do it, to see Brenda's mom and her family. We're going to spend time with her. We're hoping our daughter, who's in Germany, is allowed to fly home in July. We want to spend time with her. We want to get to Kansas City and see a daughter and her husband and 3 grandchildren. So that's what we'd like to do immediately. And then after that, we'll see. So I'm sure there'll be things that the Lord will present to us. I don't plan to apply for anything because I never have. I think we'll wait and see what the Lord brings and go from there. And I certainly want to be available to Coach Roth and Coach Rev to help and assist them in the background. I want to stay in the background in any way that I can as they move forward and lead our program at UAB, as I love those players and want to see them succeed in every area of their lives, including on the field.
That's longtime UAB baseball coach Brian Shoop. He spent 14 years in the Blazers dugout and is one of only a few college coaches to ever win 1,000 games all time. In 2014, he was named Conference USA Coach of the Year and began life after baseball on June 1st. Surely Coach Shoop has an idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
What I thought being a Blazer was to be able to participate in and play a role in the molding of young people to be true leaders when they would leave UAB. I believe not that they're the only important years, but the 4 years spent on our campus are very important years. They're very important years. They determine a lot of the trajectory of their lives. Their time at UAB, has an incredible impact on the trajectory of their lives. And because UAB makes such a difference in our city and our state, these young people will do that as well. That's what I saw as the ultimate mission of being a Blazer, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to do this for 14 years here, and I've grown to love UAB, and it's what it's a joy to see these kids that leave UAB, to see what the impact that they make.
Be one of the first to listen to the podcast when they're released. Subscribe to UAB Green and Told on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher, or listen in at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Know someone we should sit down with? Let us know. Email greenandtold@uab.edu. And follow us on social. We're at UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening. And until next time, go Blazers.